I jolted awake to the sound of splashing water. It wasn't the gentle drip of rain or the familiar gurgle of my rainwater collection system filtering clean, fresh water. No, this was different, wild, chaotic, like a fire hydrant had burst and was spewing water uncontrollably across the street. My heart raced as I slipped on a pair of worn slippers and dashed outside. There, in the dim morning light, stood Lisa, my neighbor, clutching a green plastic watering can in one hand and a garden hoe in the other. She looked like she was conducting some bizarre suburban ceremony. The lids of my rain barrels were flung open, and water gushed onto the ground in a steady stream. Lisa wasn't just letting it drain. She was scooping it out with manic determination, as if she could single-handedly dry up a lake. I froze, my mind struggling to make sense of the scene. Then, as if she felt my gaze, she whipped around, her face a twisted blend of smug satisfaction and righteous anger. "This," she hissed, flinging another scoop of water onto the pavement, "is what happens when you ignore the rules." I'm not a confrontational guy. Screaming at people isn't my style, even when they've got it coming, but in that moment, I wanted nothing more than to grab the garden hose and blast her off my property like a stray cat digging through garbage. Instead, I kept it together and managed to choke out, "Are you completely out of your mind?" Lisa tossed her hair back with a dramatic sniff, acting like royalty inspecting her domain. "It's called community standards. This neighborhood has rules, and we all agreed to them." "No," I shot back, "you agreed to them. I'm not part of your HOA." She blinked at me, momentarily thrown, as if I'd spoken in tongues. I wasn't under her little homeowners association tyranny. Her power over me was as real as a kid playing cop with a plastic badge. But in Lisa's world, everyone had to bow to the HOA, member or not. I clenched my jaw, fighting the urge to unload on her. This wasn't just a petty neighbor spat. This was my water, collected from my roof on my land. It wasn't illegal, and it sure wasn't hurting anyone. Yet there she was, Lisa, the HOA enforcer, dumping it all out of spite because my barrels dared to defy her precious rules. I took a deep breath and said, "You'd better have a damn good explanation for why you're trashing my property." Her lips curled into a smirk. "Simple. Water collection breeds mosquitoes." I stared at her, dumbfounded. "Mosquitoes?" "Yes," she snapped. "You're hoarding stagnant water, which breeds mosquitoes and puts the whole community at risk. I warned you, but you wouldn't listen, so I stepped in." That was a new level of absurd. I gestured to my barrels, the sealed lids, the mesh screens, the filtration system keeping everything pristine. "You do realize this setup is designed to stop mosquitoes, right? It's not some swamp festering in my yard. It's cleaner than the puddles in your driveway." Lisa scoffed, brushing off facts like they were irrelevant. "Doesn't matter. We have an HOA policy against rainwater collection." "There is no we," I said. "I'm not in your HOA." She flinched, just for a second, but quickly regained her composure. "You live in this neighborhood, so you should follow the same rules as everyone else." "So this is about control?" I snapped. "Not mosquitoes. You just can't stand that someone outside your little clique is doing something you don't approve of." Her face flushed red, and for a split second, I thought she might chuck the watering can at me. Instead, she huffed, stepped back, and admired the flood she'd created with a satisfied nod. "You'll thank me later," she said, then spun on her heel and strutted off, her tacky HOA polo clinging to her back, damp from her own ridiculousness. I stood there, watching the water soak into the earth, a mix of fury, disbelief, and a sudden urge to sue someone churning inside me. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. A week earlier, moving into this neighborhood had felt like a dream come true. Quiet streets, nice houses, a big backyard, and best of all, no mandatory HOA fees bleeding me dry. My first few days were peaceful. I set up my rainwater system, met some friendly neighbors, and savored the freedom of finally living somewhere without a rulebook shoved down my throat. Then Lisa showed up. She'd knocked on my door with a fake smile and a clipboard, launching into a rehearsed spiel I figured she'd perfected after years of bossing people around. "Hi there. Welcome to the neighborhood. I'm Lisa, president of the Homeowners Association." "Cool," I said, already bored. "I'm not in the HOA." Her smile flickered for a moment before snapping back into place. "Well, that's technically true, but most people choose to join. It keeps the neighborhood nice, you know. I think it's already nice, I replied. That was the first spark in what I now saw was a full-on war. Over the next few days, Lisa made it her mission to rope me in. It started with snide remarks, then fake friendly warnings about life outside the HOA, followed by mysterious violation notices taped to my door. When none of that worked, she escalated to sabotage. I crouched down to check the damage she'd done. Most of the water was gone, but the system itself was fine. It'd take time to refill, but I wasn't about to let her win. If Lisa thought she could bully me into submission, she was sorely mistaken. The next morning, I marched to City Hall, got copies of all the local water collection regulations, and printed them in big, bold letters. I wanted her to see them loud and clear. Then I dropped them on her doorstep. Hours later, I caught her standing outside, clutching the papers, her lips pursed so tight I thought her face might crack. Oh yeah, this was war. 2 days later, a fake violation notice landed in my mailbox. It was on official-looking HOA letterhead, complete with Lisa's over-the-top signature. She'd gone all out to make my life hell. It was almost impressive. The notice claimed my rainwater system violated community standards and gave me until week's end to dismantle it or face consequences. The vague wording was deliberate. She wanted me to think she had real power when she had none. I folded the letter, grabbed my phone, and dialed the number at the bottom, straight to her. She picked up on the first ring. Lisa speaking. She chirped in a fake professional tone. Hey, Lisa, got your notice. Quick question. Who gave you the legal right to enforce this? I kept my voice light, almost friendly. There was a pause. She was either crafting a lie or doubling down. The HOA has authority over all properties in this neighborhood, she said smoothly. It's in the community guidelines. Interesting, I replied, because according to the city, and I quote, homeowners not in an HOA aren't subject to its rules. So, again, where's your authority? Another pause, then a huff. It's about maintaining standards. You may not be in the HOA, but this is a community, and we expect everyone to uphold certain values. Oh, so now it's about values. I said, last time, you were ranting about mosquitoes. I don't appreciate your tone, she snapped. And I don't appreciate you harassing me with fake legal threats. I shot back. Send another one, and I'm reporting it as mail fraud. I hung up, savoring the brief rush of victory. I should have known it wouldn't end there. That night, I heard a faint shuffling outside, soft, deliberate, the kind of sound that sets your nerves on edge. I pulled on a jacket, grabbed a flashlight, and stepped into the dark. At first, nothing seemed off. My barrels stood where they belonged. Then I saw the puddle. One barrel was leaking. I walked over, heart pounding. The spout at the bottom was wide open, the ground soaked. Someone had drained it on purpose. Unless another nutcase was roaming the neighborhood with a grudge against rainwater, I knew who did it. I turned toward Lisa's house and spotted a figure, short, stocky, half hidden in her bushes, frozen like a deer in headlights. The second I locked eyes on them, they bolted, sprinting to Lisa's porch and slipping inside. She'd sent someone to sabotage me. Fuming, I stormed back to my yard, grabbed my phone, and checked my security camera app. The footage confirmed it. A guy in a dark hoodie had crept onto my property, opened the barrel, and let the water spill out. And there, in the corner of the frame, was Lisa, peeking from her window, watching it all. This wasn't petty anymore. It was criminal. The next morning, I took the footage to the police station. The officer listened as I laid it all out, nodding as I showed him the evidence. So, your neighbor, the HOA president, sent someone to illegally drain your rainwater? Yep, I said. I want to file a report for trespassing and property damage. He sighed. We don't usually get into HOA spats unless there's violence, but this is clear trespassing. We'll talk to her. That evening, a cruiser pulled up to Lisa's house. I watched from my porch as 2 officers knocked. She took her time answering, and when she did, her face soured instantly. I couldn't hear the conversation, but her wild gestures toward my house and the officers' exchanged glances said plenty. Mid-rant, she caught me watching. Our eyes met, hers burned with hate. I gave her a little wave. The officers left after 15 minutes, and she slammed her door so hard I thought it'd splinter. I braced for retaliation, but I didn't expect what came next. By morning, a rumor was spreading. Lisa's doing, no doubt, that my rainwater system was stealing water from the neighborhood supply. It was nonsense, but that didn't stop people from whispering. Mr. Thompson, a sweet old guy next door, stopped me by the mailbox. Son, I don't mean to pry, but I heard your barrels are causing a drought. I stared at him. Mr. Thompson, in 20 years here, has this place ever had a drought? He chuckled. Well, no, I suppose not. Exactly, I said. Lisa's just mad I won't follow her fake rules. He sighed. That woman's got too much time on her hands. I hoped reason would win out, but Lisa doubled down. She sent out newsletters warning about unregulated water collection. I wasn't letting her have the last word. That afternoon, I called a local news station and spilled everything. The next night, they aired a segment, HOA President Wages War Against Rainwater, complete with the trespassing footage. They interviewed me, and I laid it out. This isn't about water. It's about control. The HOA has no power over my property, and Lisa can't handle it. It's another case of an HOA overstepping. By morning, Lisa's name was trending locally, and she was scrambling to save face. Too late, the neighborhood was watching, and her grip was slipping. The chaos escalated fast. Neighbors who'd followed Lisa's rules blindly started questioning her. Some confessed she'd bullied them into compliance for years. Others just enjoyed the show as the HOA's self-proclaimed queen flailed. I thought she'd back off, but Lisa wasn't wired for surrender. She was wired to fight dirty. It started small. My mail went missing or arrived late. I caught one of her HOA cronies near my mailbox one night. He mumbled about community violations and bolted. Then came random inspections by HOA board members, who had no jurisdiction over me. I turned them away, which only fueled their persistence. Then came the water, or lack of it. One morning, I woke to find my yard flooded. At first, I thought my system had failed, but wading through ankle-deep water, I realized it wasn't my barrels. The flood was coming from elsewhere. I traced it to the side of my house. Lisa had tampered with the neighborhood drainage, redirecting storm water straight into my yard. This wasn't a prank. It was calculated, illegal sabotage. I snapped photos, then called the city. An inspector arrived fast, took one look, and whistled. Whoever did this is in deep trouble, he said, scribbling notes. I know who it was, I replied, and I've got proof. Lisa must have seen the truck, because she stormed over as I returned to my yard, arms crossed, lips a thin line. What do you think you're doing? She demanded. I waved at the mess. Fixing the disaster you caused. She feigned shock. I have no idea what you're talking about. The inspector coughed. Ma'am, we've got evidence someone altered the drainage to flood this property. Lisa gasped theatrically. That's awful, but what's it got to do with me? I played the security footage. Lisa, sneaking around my house at night, messing with the drain pipe. Her face went white. The inspector clicked his pen. This is serious. I'm reporting it to the county. She opened her mouth to argue, but a voice cut her off. That's it, I'm done. It was an HOA board member, watching from across the street. He threw up his hands. First the rainwater nonsense, then trespassing, now flooding yards? I didn't sign up for this. Lisa whirled on him. You have a duty to this community. Lady, I've got a mortgage and a lawn. That's my duty, he snapped. I quit. One by one, the remaining board members followed, fed up with her chaos. Lisa stood there, speechless, her empire collapsing. For the first time, she looked lost. I almost pitied her, almost. The fallout was brutal. The county slapped Lisa with fines for the drainage stunt and years of other violations. The HOA, already shaky, dissolved after the members voted it out of existence. Lisa, drowning in embarrassment and legal woes, put her house up for sale and vanished overnight. The kicker? Her buyer was a retired water conservation engineer. Within a month, he'd installed a high-tech rainwater system that dwarfed mine. One day, he waved me over. Hey, he grinned. Heard you're the guy who sparked the rainwater uprising. I laughed. Guess so. Thanks, he said. No HOA nonsense. And I got this place cheap because of that lunatic who lived here. We glanced at Lisa's old house, his gleaming system a perfect irony. As I walked back to my yard, I smiled. I'd won, and I had all the free, legal rainwater I'd ever need.